Well, ladies and gentlemen, Bitcoin clears out the all-time high. Congratulations, Bitcoin holders. Now the next question is, how long is it going to sustain these levels for? So let's quickly break it all down for you so you know exactly what to work with as we head into the day. The day itself is kind of interesting, guys. Can't lie. We've got Donald Trump coming out with some madness. He's going to be speaking or receiving his intelligence briefing at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard. And then, of course, at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard, he's going to be delivering remarks. What's he going to be talking about? He's going to be talking about the meeting between him and Putin and a potentially deal on some nuclear plays. Oh, well, that's going to be interesting. But the thing that's caught my attention is what's going on with Bessent. Bessent seems to be running his mouth quite a bit. He said yesterday that he is expecting that the Japanese are going to be raising their interest rates to tame their inflation. Hold on a second. Hold on. The last time the Japanese increased their interest rates, this happened. You saw this little sweep to the downside. The stock market equally took a move lower as well. Why? Because, ladies and gentlemen, the carry trade principle. What on earth is this guy talking about? What do you mean carry trade principle? Let's just put it like this, guys. Here we go. So you've got yourself a low yielding currency, which is the Japanese yen. All right, cool. Then you've also got another low yielding currency, which is the US dollar itself. So when the carry trade comes into play, investors are going to look to try and take advantage of the fact that they can borrow this currency right here, which is the yen, very cheaply. So what do? They start selling their US dollars and they start converting over into the yen. Problem is when the dollar goes down, in principle, assets like the euro, Bitcoin, Ethereum, or anything against the US dollar usually ends up going up. But the problem is if that happens, it means that the stock market is also going to start coming down. Why? Well, look at it like this. If I've got my dollars all tied up in the stock market and I've borrowed my dollars off the back of borrowing yen because I borrowed yen in the first place and converted it over to dollars, that means I'm paying a low interest rate. So what's the Japanese interest rate right now? Well, we go into it and you can see that it's less than 50.5%. So that means if by the principle of Bessent suggesting that the Japanese increase their interest rate to tame inflation, it means all the dudes that borrowed the Japanese yen over here at a lower rate and converted it over to dollars to then get those dollars and put them into the stock market, well, it means that that business now or that transaction that they did is going to cost them a little bit more money. And they're not going to be liking that. Why? Because if you increase interest rates, it means the cost of borrowing goes up. So all the guys that borrowed the yen and converted it over to dollars to put that money into the stock market are going to have to do something. And that means they're going to have to sell their dollars and convert it back into the yen. Otherwise, they're going to get taken out in terms of high interest rates. Or in other words, it's just going to cost them more money. That equally means that the dollar dominance is going to continue to go lower. Why would Bessent want the dollar to go down even more? I mean, quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, it does serve people if the dollar is weak. But again, the Japanese yen will be going up against the US dollar. The euro will be going up against the US dollar. And investors will be thinking, hold on, if the euro is going up against the US dollar and the interest rates on the US dollar are still high, I'm not going to be sat in dollar now, am I? I'm going to take advantage of borrowing euro. I don't understand what Bessent is trying to do. In the cryptocurrency scene, we're seeing a record $47 billion in open interest, and everyone is playing the altcoins across the board. Just quickly diving into everything, you can see Bitcoin's taken a little bit of a pullback from the upside move to yesterday's all-time high, which you needed pullback, ladies and gentlemen. It's healthy in regards to continuations to the upside. Going over to Ethereum, look at this, man, just madness across the board. It's just not bloody stopping. This thing is doing wonderful things, but it's near enough getting there towards its all-time high. I would love to see Ethereum clear out the 5K mark. That would be a milestone. And if it does manage to succeed the 5,000, anything above 5,100, in my opinion, would be a valid area for support for Ethereum. But looking at the order flow itself, you can see that we've had the pullback and bids have been collected in both sides right here. We've had an equally a big amount of bids coming. Look at 36 million on Bitcoin. And then we've got some over here, 36 million again on Bitcoin, 121,711. And this one here, 121,411. And then, of course, you've got 3.62 million there. And you've also got 5 million there, 35 million at the 122,500 region-ish. Now, listen, if you haven't done so already, there's a video on the channel which tells you how to understand this platform. Just go and watch it because it's going to help you make sense of what we look for when we're looking to try and buy off this information. Okay, so just Go and watch that video. It's how to use the CoinAnk, or how do I trade the CoinAnk. Okay. Now, quickly going over an update on the ETF itself. You can see that we got 744,539 on the balance of the BlackRock ETF. Seems like it's still doing well. It's doing very, very well in my opinion. And just looking at across the board, you've got the miners themselves. They haven't really been selling that much. A little bit of some selling yesterday, which wasn't bad. I'd be a little bit concerned if the miners were selling aggressively at the all-time high. But to be honest, with the wave of selling that they've done recently, they haven't sold at the all-time high. That is kind of a good reason to believe that maybe miners are anticipating further price action to the upside for cryptocurrency. Now, do you guys hear about this? The bullish IPO that came into play yesterday, ladies and gentlemen, which has done very, very well, to say the least. Here's some update on the actual ticker. You can see that it's currently priced at $68 at the close of yesterday, and now it's up nearly 12.96% heading into the open. Average daily volume, 58 million. That is really, really good right there. So going into it, we haven't got any information on this company just yet, but yet again, it's another company, cryptocurrency-based company, stepping into the New York stock market. I'm telling you now, when you get lots of companies coming into the stock market, getting IPOs and generating that liquidity to start making money and put it to work, trust me when I say this to you, you're going to witness merger and acquisitions happening like no tomorrow. And I do believe that one of the main players is going to be Circle. Going over to Circle, we can see in the out-of-hours market, it's only down 0.24%, trading at $152. In my opinion, ladies and gentlemen, I do believe that this stock at around the 150, 140 mark, between 140 and the $200 region, I do believe that this range right here is a valid area for accumulation for hedge fund managers. Going into the hedge fund manager scene, you can see it's at 14, so I'm paying attention to this. Someone asked me the question, why am I not getting involved in Circle just yet? I want to see institutional fund ownership stepping in and buying this stock. So once I see a reading of around 100, then I'm going to start considering getting involved in Circle and then just starting to accumulate because of what's going on in the space of cryptocurrency. You've got to understand, whenever a new industry comes into play or is listed on the stock market, we've got to take into consideration what the merger and acquisitions could look like in the future. So look at the tech market. How many companies are buying each other out? That's the beautiful thing about it. Look at the oil companies. They're always buying each other out. Merger and acquisitions. Cryptocurrency is going to get exactly the same thing. And when that starts to happen, that's when you're going to start seeing some serious liquidity coming into cryptocurrency, which is equally going to benefit crypto itself, like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, you name it. So I'm telling you, now that we're getting more companies going into the stock market and getting IPOs, it's great news for cryptocurrency overall. Quickly diving into the stock market, we can see that the NASDAQ has got a very interesting range right here. And there's a lot of support coming into play, but they are waiting for the data that is due to be released very, very shortly. Now, quite frankly, bad news is good news. And what I mean by that is if we do see the unemployment claims coming in higher, then that just justifies the reason why the Federal Reserve is going to want to cut the interest rates. Equally, if we see the core PPI coming in higher, that is a representation of the cost of goods and services going up, which equally means that the Fed needs to cut interest rates so that companies aren't having to increase the cost of the goods and services because the cost of doing business is going up. I'm not even going to talk about these tariffs right now. So, ladies and gentlemen, is it support or are we just going to see Bitcoin bleed out to the downside? Quick update for the holders themselves. We're going over into the daily time frame. What you got to take into consideration, yet the blue vector candle has been recovered. However, what we're looking for Bitcoin to do is still sustain itself above the 5 and 13 EMA. And if you are a spot holder, then just make sure that you're paying attention to how price behaves around the 120,363 region and, of course, the 118,542. In my opinion, these areas would be valid bid areas for Bitcoin accumulation. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, mad love and respect. I hope you enjoy your day. And if you are new to the channel, go check out tradersreality.com on the website. There's a PDF right there and a little video explaining to you what the hybrid system is. And as you scroll down, you can join the Discord and take advantage of installing the indicator because it's free of charge. And a video right here shows you how to do that. Okay? Other than that, gang, please trade safely and watch out for Donald Trump today. He's running his mouth at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard and 1 p.m. Eastern Standard. Take care of yourselves, gang. Peace.